Hey everyone, let me just find my clicker over here. There we go. Wallet Connect. I hope that everyone in the room has seen Wallet Connect. And as it was already presented, my name is Pedro Gomes. I'm the founder and director of the Wallet Connect Foundation. And we've been building wallet infrastructures, what feels like since forever. And wallets are really changing very rapidly. I'm glad to say that because after so many years building wallets, it felt like nothing was changing, and all of a sudden everything is happening very quick. Once we actually felt like there was actual scaling and we actually had other problems to solve, wallets were the next problem to solve. And I'm here to talk about different flavors of smart sessions. And also, we need to kind of talk about a little bit what smart sessions are, because a lot of you might have heard about the term smart wallets, and it almost felt like natural that if you had a wallet, you can have a smart wallet. Just like if you have a phone, you have a smartphone. But what about the smart session? Like even the concept of a session, when you think about it, when you connect a wallet, whether it's through Wallet Connect or through any other means, you're establishing a session. And that session is an agreement between the app and the wallets that are communicating with each other, saying, I need to interact with you for the purpose of exposing accounts, signing messages, transactions, and overall interacting with the blockchain. I need to understand what accounts you have. I need to understand what chains we're going to interact with and which methods we're going to use in order to do that. And this is how Wallet Connect is built. It's a very simple protocol that is now established across multiple wallets that just establish a session. So how can we make it smarter? So I like tweeting a lot, so I thought that I should make this whole presentation tweet based. So smart sessions completely change how we think because we've always thought about the UX of wallets as something limited that we could not change, and smart sessions really bring that. Because when you think about wallets, you're really thinking about the concept of an EOA or an externally owned wallet that you have a private key and you need to sign every time you have a transaction. So this constant pop-up going in your face for you to interact with an app is it just now feels like the norm. But it's not the norm for anyone outside of crypto. This actually feels quite unfamiliar and unnatural. And with smart sessions, we actually have that problem solved because we no longer need a pop up for every transaction. What we need is to make the session itself smarter to understand when a transaction is valid or not valid. And not valid for the sake of like it ran out of gas or it's actually using the wrong smart contract, but actually valid because you're setting temporarily some limited permissions that allow the app to just flow without the pop ups. And this doesn't mean that you like actually extract the private key and you put it in the app. It actually generates another key, which we'll get into a little bit more. And more importantly, you have less clicks, less pop ups, less friction. Like it just feels more like the internet that we all know. And when we think about these permissions, everyone always asks me, what does this look like? It doesn't have to be too complicated. It could be something as simple as like just having a time expiry, saying, this only works for an hour or this only works for a day, or if you want to go a little bit more ambitious, it works for a whole week, which is how actually most of the internet works. You actually establish a session for a week and it renews on a weekly basis. And then it describes like spending limits. For example, you can only use certain amount of tokens and certain NFTs, and you can only interact with certain contracts. And this is what we've been working on for the last year. And using this actually is required that you have like smart accounts. So previously, smart accounts meant 4337, which was the standard that started like 3 years ago and started becoming a little bit more adopted around 2023, 2024. But then obviously, anyone who has come even close to 4337, it does come with a lot of complexity. And fortunately, the Ethereum core development community brought up the 7702, which was an upgrade that happened very recently. It's a huge step because I think, no, I don't think, I know for sure that like this is the first core development change that is specific for wallets. This is not even like 1559, which improved the gas tracking of how you actually have like less spikes in terms of like gas estimation. This is a specific EIP for wallets, and essentially brings smart contract functionality to your EOA. So you almost have like a smart account. I almost call it like a hybrid smart account. So thanks to both 4337 and 7702, we can actually bring functionality to more and more wallets like smart sessions. And we need to talk about a little bit of different implementations. Like this all started with the concept of session keys. It's quite simple. Like you generate a session and you have a key, and now this key signs for the session. But then obviously, as you can imagine, with anything in engineering, it's never that simple. There's certain problems that come in your way, and then people come up with new solutions. And now it's been over a year of smart sessions, and now there's three flavors of smart sessions. There's the original, the OGs, session keys, and by OG I mean 12 months old. Then there's session accounts, and there's sub accounts. So let's go through them, different pros and cons of each one of them. So session keys, quite simple. Like the wallet adds a new session signer that is now managed by the actual wallet that is delegating some permissions for this app to use the session key that now actually can do, for example, spend 1,000 Pepe and actually trade 2 NFTs, and you can do this for a week. That's all it says. So anything that goes beyond that scope, it can't do. Or you could do it something simpler, like you can do 10 transactions. So instead of time-based, you make it like nonce-based, but you can only interact with this contract. And now you actually know specifically which contract is going to hit, and you can only do 10 transactions. And then the wallet would be able to manage that. This kind of is nice in theory, but then it requires this like wallet module. And if you ever touched wallet development, it's already hard in itself. Having coordination around all of these wallets of how they design themselves, like, Wallet Connect is not something that has happened overnight. It took years for wallets to all coordinate together, and account abstraction is quite new. And it's taking a lot of time for wallets to kind of agree of the concept of smart accounts, how it should be implemented. So when you touch on session keys, you're basically telling people, let's all agree on the same module for session keys. And there's a team that's called Rhinestone that they actually built a modular standard for modules. But then even then there was like multiple session key modules. So you fix the module installation process, but then there's like two different modules. So now you actually have two different types of session keys. And that's where things got a little bit complicated. So then session accounts came in. Session accounts said, actually, let's make it a little bit more flexible. Let's allow the wallet to control the permissions. That's the most important part. Like if the wallet controls the state of the account, it means that the wallet will be able to say, I will allow you to do X, Y, and Z, but I don't need to understand how you generate or manage your session keys. This was very helpful because now apps have flexibility if they want to use like uh, like a browser key, or if they want to use a passkey, or even if they want to use a cloud provider like an MPC network that acts as a session key. Like it's completely unrelated from the actual session key module, because now the wallet doesn't even need to be aware of how the session keys are managed. What you are actually doing is delegating a session account, and the session account has the permissions, but then someone else is actually doing the management of the keys. So you could theoretically even have multiple keys for the session account. So it's almost like an account in an account, but the only thing this can do is key management for the purpose of the session. It doesn't actually hold any assets. It doesn't actually like even manage the permissions. It just manages keys for the session. And this comes with the standard ERC 7710, which brings this delegation manager, which essentially does this purpose. And this could be either deployed by a third party, like let's say an SDK team, like MetaMask actually has an implementation of this. They call it the delegation kit. Or it could even be the app itself. The app could just deploy its own delegation manager for their users. Then sub-accounts came into picture and they thought, why stop there? Like, we want the apps to be even more expressive. We want the apps to have more control over their wallets. And even today, if you think about it, like there's been an explosion of companies doing embedded wallets like Dynamic, Rion, Privy, Third Web, on-chain Kit by Coinbase. Like there's a lot of companies building embedded wallets, and the biggest problem with embedded wallets is that they're these isolated wallets that live in the app and have no context or any correlation with your main wallet. So SubAccounts is trying to kind of move more in the direction of embedded wallets, but still learning from the experience of the smart sessions. So instead of actually having now a delegation manager that does only session key management, it actually does session key management, permission management, and it can even have its own balances. The concept here is actually that the wallet now, instead of generating sessions, is generating accounts that it owns. So it creates this hierarchical model where your main wallet owns multiple wallets or multiple accounts. So you have one wallet that has multiple account addresses. And then these account addresses will essentially have a specific scope. But while this provides a lot of flexibility for apps, because now as an app developer, this is very exciting. You're basically your own wallet without the responsibility of being your own wallet or even the fragmentation of embedded wallets. It feels like the perfect sweet spot. But it's not that simple because now you have this new address. Like we are so used to this single address pattern where you actually have one address to rule them all. And now you actually have one wallet could have multiple addresses under one tree of accounts. And this completely changes how we even think about EVM. It also changes how we think about blockchain explorers. Like Etherscan would have to be designed very differently with this concept, but it's really powerful because this opens up like way more use cases than smart sessions could ever do. I mean, if you think about it, one of the biggest problems with this is that now we actually are developing like we have like Wallet Connect working a lot on session keys. We have MetaMask working on session accounts. We have Coinbase team working on these sub accounts, and we try to think, okay, guys, we need to be productive here. Let's build a standard around this. And 7715 is what we did, where we have an interface that can negotiate a little bit of the are you using session keys? Are you using session accounts? Are you using sub accounts? And this negotiation is really interesting because then the app can also adjust a little bit based on the wallet. So if a wallet is session key based or session account based, it can actually use both, or it can even throw an error that is a little bit more expressive than just saying failed. You know, it says, oh, you do not have the exact permissions that I need to proceed with this. So we need to find a different way of connecting. With 7710, what you're actually doing, you're actually focusing more on the actual key management stuff. So this is actually complementary to the 7715 because you're basically saying, I can do your permissions, but with my key management. So these standards are complementary. And if you read the spec of ERC 7715 and 7710, they actually like loop together really well. The hardest one is actually 7895 because while it shares conceptually the same like it's essentially the same outcomes that you would have from a smart session, but conceptually it's very different because you are a different account. But then this is really great, especially for games. Like if you have a game, one of your biggest problems is that you want to have a global economy with local context. So for example, you want to have like, for example, specific game items that are NFTs that are only within your app and are not like just floating around across the whole blockchain. But then you want to have some economy, like especially fungible assets that would be in the main account. So sub accounts are really cool in this manner because then you can actually have like some assets sit on the sub account, some assets sit on the main account, but the main account at any point can withdraw or deposit from the sub account. So it has full control. If in fact the sub account could even be completely deleted and just wiped out by the main account, like as a emergency failure. Like that's how powerful this pattern is. And this is also goes a little bit into like, you know, a lot of people are building AI and all of these agents are kind of cool, but we never know what could happen. So if you have a sub account, they are fully autonomous, but at the same time, you have the ability to revoke access and control how much damage it could actually cause. So these are the different flavors, and I try to kind of create a little bit of a matrix here that explains the pros and cons. As we talked about it, session keys, the signer and the permissions are both managed by the wallet. The advantage here is that they do have the same address. You always have the same address as the wallet in the session key, but it requires this module. The session accounts, now the app, and I put a little asterisk here because it's a little bit, it's not necessarily the app. It could be, for example, an SDK that manages the session. So we're not putting more responsibility on the app. We're just saying that the context has switched to the signer being managed at the app level, not at the wallet level. And then the same address, the reason it has an asterisk as well is because theoretically speaking, you do have the same address, but if you're familiar with the message.sender at smart contract level, you still have a little bit of a nuance there, like similar to 4337, where whenever you're actually transacting, the smart contract has to be able to identify that it's actually coming from an owner, which is solved by standards like 1271. And you also need a module for this. Now with the sub accounts, it's a little bit more autonomous. So now the account lives on the app. The account live for both signing and permissions. You do not have the same address. So now you actually have two separate balances. You have two separate addresses, two separate identities, but your main account fully owns and controls the sub account. It's basically what we have today with embedded wallets. But if your favorite wallet, whether that's a ledger, a mobile wallet, or a browser extension, completely owns this sub account. It's like a sweet spot between having the full autonomy, but also with the full control. And then in here, there's an asterisk on the module. So you don't necessarily need a module, like in the concept of a smart contract module, but you need to have this capability of a multi-count addressing, like this hierarchy of accounts. It is kind of a problem because it's very promising, these sub accounts, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a solved problem. So, in a way, I kind of feel like this talk is about how we move from session keys and then we took a step further into session accounts and then we finally arrived at sub accounts. It's not that simple because right now, most implementations are session keys, you know? Session accounts and sub accounts are highly experimental still. Like session keys are 1 year old. That's in crypto terms very mature. They're also the easiest one to set up. They're also the easiest ones to understand. Session accounts bring a lot of flexibility, which is really good, but not necessarily go like full autonomy like sub accounts. I feel like we are likely going to see a bigger jump of people moving from session keys to sub accounts than even from session keys to session accounts, because you really need to have like this 10x improvement for people to completely change their tech stack. And session accounts feel more like an incremental improvement over session keys. But definitely, I'm starting to see more and more developers moving away from session keys, and they're ending up in these two groups. You're either doing session accounts or sub accounts. It is not clear which one is going to particularly take off. And I think it's not necessarily something that it's going to win. Obviously, with sub accounts, you know, it's a little bit more sandboxed. It's a little bit cleaner in terms of scoping, more autonomy. There's no wallet modules, but also doesn't have the concept of shared state. This is where session accounts come in. They're a little bit more shared state. They focus more on the delegation, which is the purpose of Smart Session. They don't try to be an account, which the sub account is. It's an account in itself. But then again, like session accounts do provide this like overhead. And you at that point you realize if I'm actually adding this much engineering overhead to this technology, I might as well go all beyond and go full on in sub accounts. But session keys are still great, you know, like session keys still have like a lot of standardization and we're working towards that, but there is definitely a slowness to when you actually develop things that require wallet development. Like if you had to do something that's completely on the app side, things move much faster. And I think that's one of the attractions of the sub accounts. Like while Wallet Connect has been bringing a lot of standardization with session keys uh, for the wallet level, we are starting to see more attention around let's fix this problem at the app level rather than the wallet level. Even then, we did bring a standard together with a couple of partners of ours. 5792. 5792 actually does a lot of things. Like this is one of the things it does. One of the most famous things that 5792 does is transaction batching. Most people actually know about 5792 because of transaction batching. But one of the RPC methods it brings is this wallet get capabilities. And this is perfect for smart sessions because even beyond what we described before with 7715 and 7710, with 5792, you can actually just straight out ask. And you can even do this like when you connect your wallet. Like you don't have to do multiple round trips. You connect your wallet, and the wallet is being asked, what capabilities do you have? Do you support session keys? Do you support paymasters for 4337? Do you support SubAccounts? Like you can just ask essentially a wish list of features, and the wallet can say which ones they support, and then the app or the SDK on the other side can actually adapt the connection to be smarter depending on the capabilities that you actually expose as a wallet. So nothing is lost. Like we still have a lot of work to do here, but through all of these ERCs and EIPs, we're making a large progress into bringing innovation at a faster pace for wallets without actually slowing down into having multiple implementations. So we are not clear which flavor of Smart Sessions is going to win per se, but we are still doing it in a way that's standardized and in collaboration together. I think this completely changes the game, right? Because the more we actually standardize and the more implementations we have, the UX for the wallet side becomes more commoditized. Like we are no longer talking about like a few years back, these solutions as account abstraction, they used to be like company brand. It was like, are you using the safe accounts? Are you using the Biconomy accounts? Are you using the zero dev accounts? And now it's becoming like all standards. And now these companies are actually sharing standards. Like it's becoming a part where it no longer matters if you're using this company account or this company account because they're all the same. They just cherry pick which features they like. And because of that, it provides a little bit more confidence for app developers to build, knowing that they don't have this vendor lock-in. And if the builders are getting more comfortable, then the users also get more comfortable because they don't feel locked to a specific wallet, just like the builders don't feel locked to a specific SDK. And this is something that obviously is very important for Wall Connect. And we are really putting a lot of effort into driving this for smart sessions. We want to improve user experience. We spent years doing that. And now with this move towards smart wallets and smart accounts, we also are making our sessions smarter with smart sessions. So we have implemented all of these that we discussed, and we're working towards with wallets to bring more app developers to take advantage of this so that we can build better user experience. And eventually there will be like 0 clicks and we just like move and completely forget about this wallet UX that we've had, this like clicking and pop-ups and everything. Let's completely redefine this. And I'm really glad that like as a network, we're really doing this together. And it's no longer about competing for like the biggest share of the pie. And we're just building this really as a team. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pedro. This was a great presentation. So we've got a couple of minutes left now. One of the questions was, does it really make sense to manage sub-accounts via modules? As to me, it seems like much more of an app implementation than the smart contract itself. What do you say to that?
Yeah, so that's why there was an asterisk because like a sub account isn't really a module. It's more like a pattern. Like you as a wallet, not necessarily need a smart account to have a sub account module. What you actually need is to have the ability to map out your hierarchy. And that could be through like generating deterministic addresses as well. This is something that's it's being worked on with the ability of you actually determine which addresses for each sub account will be based on some salt, some init code, so you know exactly for this specific session which sub account is going to be, and also the ability for indexers to understand for each sub account which main account does it map to, and for each main account which sub accounts does it have. So it's not necessarily a module per se; it's more like a framework. And this framework touches on apps, touches on wallets, touches on blockchain explorers. It's quite a substantial change, but seeing how much adoption it has gained, it feels like quite worth to put the resources and attention into it.
All right, thank you so much. I don't think, well, let's squeeze in one more question. Can fragmentation of users' addresses with sub-accounts be mitigated with app-level ENS and similar tricks?
Well, I would say so. Like, because if you have a main account that, let's say the main account is your identity, your ENS, for example, that's the one that you actually put your face, like your face, your PFP and your username, then all the sub accounts will map into it. You won't care about those addresses. Like you won't care about like for this specific app, I have this address. It doesn't matter. Like you have one ENS, which is in your main account, and all the sub accounts can like you can have as 1,000 sub accounts, delete half of them because you don't want to connect to these apps anymore, and they all map out to the main account. I think it would solve a big problem that we have today, which is you have your main wallet and then you have like these embedded wallets and it's completely fragmented. And if you wanted to map it with the ENS, it would be a nightmare because the embedded wallets were created without the involvement of the main wallet. And that's completely different with sub accounts, where these sub accounts are created with the consensus of the main wallet. So if you have one identity, you have one profile across your whole internet.
Thank you so much, Pedro.
Thank you.